Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to the latest episode of the Genesys Cloud Community's Q&A Show, the show where we answer your pressing questions in the Genesys Cloud online community. My name is Matt Lawson. I'm your online community manager, and today we're talking about the AI Connect for Google application that you can now find in the App Foundry. This whole conversation came about because a community member posted asking if anybody had used it before or knew any or had any information about it. Well, 20 people chimed in saying that they were also curious, but that none of them had used it. I thought this was a great time to connect them with one of the PMs who worked on the feature and a developer. So today you're going to get an overview of the feature. We're going to answer some of the pressing questions that came in and hopefully give you all of the power that you need to be successful with this possible implementation. Now, please don't go too far. Next week, we're going to have a new episode about work automation. And if you head over to the Genesys Cloud community, you'll see where I am asking for your questions about work automation. We're going to give you a couple of resources that you can check out before the episode, but we'd love to know what questions you have. But that's for next week's episode. I am ready to learn all about this AI connector, and I hope you are too. Let's go ahead and meet our panel. Hey, Blake, Jonathan, welcome to the show. How are you guys?
Doing well, thanks.
Awesome.
Yep, doing
Um,
good. Thanks, Blake.
awesome. Well, hey, Jonathan, first of all, a big thank you to you. You and I ended up finding each other randomly through various kinds of email chains and stuff. And you really, when you heard we wanted to do this topic, you really took the ball, ran with it, helped us find Blake so that we can answer some of these questions that came in. And first of all, so I just wanted to say thank you so much for helping us get this episode together. Can you go ahead and talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what brought you to this conversation?
I work within our innovations team. I head up our solutions consulting team, currently based out of the UK, actually. I work closely alongside Blake and the rest of the team to cover, the apps like AI Connect for Google and some of the others on the App Foundry.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm glad we connected. It's been fun getting to know you a little bit. And Blake, can you talk a little bit about what you do at Genesis?
Like Jonathan, I'm part of the innovations team, focused more on the product side. So I'm, I guess, for lack of a better term, the product owner of AI Connect for Google. So I've worked closely with the developers from the onset to come up with the design. So I've been involved from the ground floor of AI Connect. Look forward to sharing a little bit of what we've been able to do with it today.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, me too. So I understand, Jonathan, you wanted to do a real quick overview and then we'll answer some of the questions came in. Does that sound good?
Yep, that sounds good.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, so let's get into a bit of an overview of the features and functionality and how this works. With AI Connect for Google, it's basically just that integration that combines the Genesys Cloud org with your CCIA and Generative Knowledge Assist and insights that you already have configured on the Google side. And how it works is that the conversation audio that gets streamed to Google from AI Connect creates a real-time transcript of the customer to agent conversation, and that's then presented back to the agent along with any kind of suggestions for how to best serve that customer. So essentially saving overall time and increasing the consistency and the accuracy. As for the overall architecture, I'm going to hand over to Blake.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'll go ahead and take this from left to right as you see it on the slide. So we start first with Genesys Cloud. The first thing that we need to consider is how it is that we're going to get the audio so that we can pass it to Google to do all of the agent assist, generative knowledge assist, in general AI workloads on top of it. We use the audio hook feature. That's a native capability within Genesys Cloud. If you're not familiar with it, there's plenty of public documentation. Once we've configured the Genesys Cloud environment with that audio hook, we're able to consume it in AI Connect. What we have to do with it is we just translate it into gRPC. gRPC is the main protocol that Google uses for all of its CCAI operations. So really, as you go from left to right on that top line, we're just taking the real-time audio feed as a WebSocket connection, converting it into gRPC so that it can be processed in Google CCAI. As it's being processed, AI Connect is subscribed to certain events within Google CCAI so that based upon how it is that you configured Google with your conversation profile specifically, it will pair anything that it recognizes in that audio stream with what's there from a knowledge content standpoint. If anything is triggered, we recognize it and we immediately push that back to Genesys Cloud via the notification APIs. So that as the audio is being fed to Google in real time, we're able to surface anything that Google recognizes as being relevant to the conversation. One last piece of the architecture which we need to account for is how that's presented in the agent desktop. So within the agent desktop, we're taking advantage of the extensibility that Genesys Cloud provides to embed a desktop application widget within the native agent desktop for Genesys Cloud. So at a very high level, what this is showing is that we're getting the audio from Genesys Cloud, passing it along to Google CCAI, pairing that audio stream with any knowledge and content that's in their database, and presenting that immediately to the agent within the native desktop application of Genesys Cloud.
Wow, that's really cool. This is one of those great episodes for me where I didn't know this feature existed in this way. It's super neat to hear. One of the things I'm curious about is I see it can do sentiment analysis, it can, recommend content and stuff. So as part of the sentiment analysis, if a call isn't going well, can it also alert the manager? Like you might want to, listen in on this for like a coaching opportunity or something like that.
We don't today have real-time notification events to a supervisor, but if a supervisor would be happy to be watching the sentiment analysis in Google Insights, they would be able to see that in real time.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
Definitely a roadmap consideration for us to consider some of the supervisor feature functionality. But right now, the primary motivation for AI Connect for Google is agent assist workloads.
Okay, awesome. Anything else you want to cover on this slide?
I'm good.
Great. Thanks, Blake, for giving that overview for us. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is just cover off some of the, I would say, the key features and benefits that AI Connect for Google provides. Of course, this list is not exhaustive in any way, but just to kind of get your creative juices flowing. So you're obviously going to get that suggested responses for when using the generative knowledge assist. So that allows you for, obviously things like increased first call resolution. You're obviously going to maintain that concrete, concurrent, consistent responses across your lines of business so that one agent does not provide different set of instructions to the next agent. Then there's obviously the real-time transcription portion. So you basically have the agent that can go back and look at the transcript after the call to see if there was any additional takeaways that they need to take down. So they don't need to like spend the time making notes as a customer is talking. They can always come back to key parts of that conversation by reviewing the transcription before wrapping it up. You obviously then get your knowledge base that's also infused with AI. So with this, you can obviously, the way that you would train your data or load your data in the backend on a Google side, because that's ingested just as the way it is within the Genesys Cloud UI. You're obviously going to have always accurate and up-to-date information as well, and taking advantage of all the AI features that Google has to offer. And then lastly is, as we just discussed about the contextual insights and recommendations of monitoring that on the Google side, it's obviously going to give you enhanced reporting capabilities on the Google side, but also to be able to tie that up to the Genesys Cloud conversations with the conversation IDs that we store on both the Google side and the Genesys Cloud side as well.
Thanks, guys, for the demo, the overview, and everything. I wanted to go back to this slide real quick because one of the questions that was really popular or getting to in the community is kind of the configuration of this. How does it get configured? And I thought this slide might be helpful so you can kind of explain the different pieces and walk through, at a high level, right? I understand we can't go too granular into all of the buttons you have to click and stuff like that, but Blake, maybe you could just talk a little bit about configuration, how complicated it is, the general FAQs.
I'd be happy to. So let me start first with that box in the middle. So that box in the middle is something that is available via the App Foundry. So once you've purchased via the App Foundry, AI Connect for Google becomes available to you within Genesys Cloud native App Foundry integrations option. So we'll start first with the assumption that you've already acquired that. Once it's acquired, you just log into Genesys Cloud, and similar to how you would add any other integration from the App Foundry, you click on the plus button, you have the option to install it. You install it, you'll be met with a few options to pick from. It's basically an installation wizard. And that installation wizard, however, isn't cannot be completed without a few things that have to be done ahead of time. What I mean by that is you have to have a Google CCAI environment with the GCP project set up, and at minimum, a conversation profile created. Now, if you're just getting started and you want to start first with a Genesys Cloud Find, you could start with an empty conversation profile and get through the installation. But I caveat that with an empty conversation profile would not perform any agent assist workloads. So the potential of the AI Connect for Google solution is really a function of what you have set up in GCP from a knowledge assist standpoint. So any of your knowledge content, any of your knowledge articles, links that you want to crawl, so on and so forth, without having them present in your Google CCAI project, there's not a whole lot to do. Anyway, having said that, once you've set up Google CCAI with a conversation profile, you have the necessary ingredient to complete that installation wizard in Genesys Cloud. So you fill out that installation wizard, and then at that point, you're ready to move on to the audio acquisition piece, which is that audio hook. Part of the AIC integration will generate a WebSocket URL that you'll input into the audio hook configuration. And then once that's completed, it's really a function of how you want to design your call flows within Genesys Cloud Architect to determine when and where it's appropriate to acquire that audio to push it through for agent assist workloads. So I said a lot. Maybe that was
Yeah.
confusing. Let me just quickly try to summarize it. So acquire AI Connect for Google via the App Foundry. Make sure that you have a GCP environment configured with a conversation profile. You use that conversation profile to fill out an installation wizard. Once the installation wizard is complete, you can set up your audio hook. Once the audio hook is available, then you just begin to design your architect flows for how it is that you want to use Agent Assist in combination with the Genesys Cloud work. Sorry, in combination with Genesys Cloud.
It's cool. Honestly, it's funny to me. It always tickles me because when we do a call like this, we're always like, we're just going to keep it high level, high level. And then it's funny how even the high level just becomes this accordion of like, what did you have there? Like 7, 8 steps like that people need to do. And those are the basic ones. Well, I guess for my question, just out of curiosity, I'm kind of curious with something like this, when do you recommend implementing it? You talked about how certain things are definitely required, like within the Google Cloud, environment. So is this something you would recommend somebody does like when they're first getting started with Genesis? Is it good to do any time? Any best practices on something like that?
Well, I wish there was an easy answer to that. What I would say is that it's ready at any point. Obviously, meaningful use will be achieved faster if you already have existing content that you can leverage inside of Google CCAI.
Right.
So certainly, the customers that already have that content present will be able to achieve meaningful use quicker. Having said that, I mean, the potential is there for any customer that's interested in using Google CCAI to improve their, agent experience and customer experience.
Okay.
I would say that those that have already done some work inside of Google GCP, so that there's an existing, warehouse and repository for the agent assist loads, will find meaningful use quicker.
Okay, cool. And you all are not the first app from App Foundry that we featured on the show. I guess so. I always have a couple of questions when something like this happens. The first is there, and because of the implementation required, I'm assuming not, but is there any kind of a free trial for this, or do you have to go straight into a purchase?
At present, there's not a free trial.
Okay. And then do you have any information on like, is there a licensing cost or what's the cost like?
So in terms of pricing, there's actually two models that we're offering. The first is what we call our add-on component, and the second is bring your own tech. So with the add-on component, you just basically subscribe and pay Genesys one flat fee for these components. So whether you just want Agent Assist without summarization, or whether you want both of them, or only for chat, you'll pay this list price on the left here. If you already have Google services on your side and you already have an account with Google and you just want to use the AIC service to stream it, but you already have your consumption model on the Google side, you will go with the bring your own tech model on the right-hand side. And then, of course, in either scenario, whether you go with the add-on licensing model or the bring your own tech, you're going to be just doing a one-time quick start enablement to help us with setting up the integration for you.
Some of the questions that we had were around licensing costs, but it doesn't sound like there really is like a licensing cost. This is it, right?
Well, there are a couple of other things to keep in mind as well for other charges. So if you're going to be using the voice component of the solution, there is also the audio hook costs or the audio hook charges that you need to take into account. It is not a lot. If you have, let's say, an agent doing 1,000 minutes per month, your audio hook charges for that agent for 1,000 minutes is going to be about $4 because it comes in at around 0.004 cents USD per minute. So it's very, very low, but it's just something else to take into account because if you go from 1,000 minutes a month to 3,000 minutes a month per agent, all of a sudden the $4 becomes a $12, and that's on top of whatever you're going to be paying for your licensing cost here and your Genesys Cloud license. So it could quickly rack up. So it's just something to keep in mind. Obviously, there is no charge like that if you're only going to be doing chat because chat does not leverage the audio hook component. And then there is also a second component in line with this, which is the voice transcription charges that takes place in Genesys Cloud. So by default, for AI Connect to work, you do not need to enable Genesys's voice transcription services. But if you wanted a more accurate transcript stored with your conversation details within Genesys Cloud, we do advise you to enable transcription services because I think Blake might have already mentioned, but the Google transcription services is optimized for speed and not for accuracy, where the Genesys one is. Now, depending on the license tier that you're going to have with the GC1, 2, or 3, those three licenses all come with its own allocation of fair use policy, meaning that with a GC3 license, for example, if you enable speech to text or voice transcription services in Genesys, you're going to get 5,000 minutes already included per seat per month. But if you're on something like a GC1, you're only going to get 100 minutes included, and then any overages, you're going to basically exceed fair usage and you're going to be billed back for that. So that's just something to keep in mind, just those two cost components.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for covering all of the everything from the pricing, how it works, how people can get started. Again, this all started because in the community, somebody named Ramsha just kind of asked general questions about this, right? Their main concern was they were thinking about trying to test this in a development environment first. And in general, they were just kind of curious if we have any insight or resources that we can share. They were really hoping some customers would chime in. And a lot of customers chimed in and said that they are interested in the feature, but they haven't used it quite yet. So I wanted to go back to kind of the original principle here, the original discussion. If somebody is interested in testing this or they're on the fence about the feature, what advice do you have for them?
So I would say in that instance, we would hope that they have some kind of a development environment on their Google side, like a Google account that they can use for testing this out. Building out their generative assist articles and article suggestions and FAQs and so forth. And then at the same time, if they wanted to deploy this to a dev org on the Genesis side to test that integration back to forth, they can obviously consult with us. As we already mentioned, there is no free paid trial today, but we can agree to something like a paid proof of value rather, where
Okay.
we kind of write in special terms to say, okay, well, this is what you want to get out of it. Of course, it's not going to be free, but here's a paid proof of value that you can then say, okay, if it doesn't meet the success criteria defined after 30, 60, whatever days we agree to, then there's no commit for you to carry on with it. But at least in that way, we're going to investing a lot of time and resources our side. So by doing it that way, we want to make sure that you get the best experience and you also commit to getting your resources invested. And then side by side, we can basically make that work.
Okay, awesome. A couple other people chimed in with some questions that I wanted to cover. The first is about user experience. And with AI, a lot of people are really thinking about the impact that it can have. So just curious, has your team had any feedback on how AI enhances or complicates the user interactions?
Got it. So let's start first with enhances. I'll put complicates on the back burner a little bit. I think the most important thing to realize is that what we're hoping to achieve with AI Connect for Google is the ability to provide that consistent yet efficient customer experience. And that's really what this is about, meaning that for a given type of interaction with the customer, If the AI is doing its job properly, you could expect that that agent's always going to be getting the same relevant content in a efficient manner so that they can provide the same feedback to a customer on a given question or inquiry, so on and so forth. Um, the feedback itself, it's a pretty, I'll just say, seamless and transparent experience to an agent, meaning that as they're conversing with the customer, these things are automatically popping up and presenting them with options. And they have the ability to vote up and vote down the relevant content. So we see that it does improve over time. But really, in terms of enhancement, that might be a little bit of a stretch. Really, what it's about is providing consistent yet efficient customer experiences.
Okay, cool. So what about complications that you all have seen?
Yeah, so I mean, this is I mean, maybe it won't be much of a surprise. The biggest complication we have is, obviously, it's easy to see the potential that this solution has. We've all, probably had experience with ChatGPT by now to understand, just how compelling AI is, and how, quickly it's advancing. So with that, we see a lot of exuberance and a lot of excitement about this. So customers will go, they'll get everything set up, and then once an agent starts using it, they're kind of like, whoa, whoa, what's going on? Well, if you don't have anything in your knowledge base to trigger article suggestions, FAQs, so on and so forth, obviously you're not going to see a whole lot of meaningful insights to the agent to improve the customer experience. So I don't know that it necessarily fits inside the complications category, but if we can say that there's been disappointment, it's just that, and it's that the customer will turn this on, and because there's nothing in their knowledge base for the AI to act on, they simply don't see a meaningful benefit. So I think it's important that customers understand the AI is only going to be as good as the data that you give it. So
Sure.
you really got to have the expectation that in order for this to work well for me, I have to have a good data set for my agents to work with. And that goes the same for production as it would a POC.
Okay. Naturally, we were kind of already hinting at it, but any ethical considerations here, concerns about privacy, data usage, algorithmic bias?
So I think it's a very, very good question. We get that one a lot, especially, in the GDPR governing laws of type of countries. We're kind of dependent here on whatever agreements, the end user have with Google. So we're going to be leveraging and taking advantage of what's configured on that side and what the customer has agreed to sign away with Google. Nothing that we really do to intervene or mask or pull out any of that data in that shape or form. Yeah, I don't know if Blake has anything else to add to that.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, Jonathan. I guess it's just probably important with that answer to understand that the actual AI workloads that are being done, because of AI Connect for Google, are 100% a function of Google intellectual property, not Genesys.
That all makes sense to me. And obviously, it's funny because we talk so much about Google and how we're relying on them. And so is this follow-up question that the same user had. Because we work closely with Google, do you have any insight into any kind of like innovations that they're working on or, any kind of peek behind the curtain you can share in terms of like their AI technology or research?
So we have a strong partnership with Google. We meet on a weekly basis with the product management for CCAI. They have
Oh, awesome. Very cool.
several product managers depending on what specific part of CCIN you're talking about. Now, just how far we get to peek behind the curtain, I can't really say, but we are aware of what's going on within the roadmap. One thing that I will say though is that the speed at with which things are advancing within the world of AI, it's no different with what you see in ChatGPT versus what we're seeing in contact center AI. And the one nice thing is that under the covers as some of the things improve, you will get that, for free or out of the box, shall we say. Meaning that as Google's models and LLMs are improving, that will continue to naturally evolve into the product. Now, as it relates to new feature functionality that's coming along, we certainly are aware of what's coming down the pipe, and as and where it makes sense, we will extend to support feature functionality that Google is making available. But I think the most important takeaway, as it relates to the innovation, is just the fact that we will get it for free with the integration because it continues to evolve and improve behind the scenes as Google does their work.
That's really cool. Awesome. Well, guys, that concludes all the questions that came into the community that came in over email and everything. I really can't thank you all enough for taking the time to do this. Again, Jonathan, you're the man. Thank you so much for helping me get connected with Blake so that we could talk about this. I loved having you guys on. And if you're working with any clients who have done anything cool in the space of AI or building bots or anything like that, just so you know, we right now have a contest going on in the community where members can submit their bot, their AI innovation, or any kind of cool workflow that they've built for the chance to win a prize from our prize wall. So if you have any customers you want to send our way, cool chance to win a prize. We're also doing Halloween trivia and some stuff like that. So Blake, Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the show. If I don't see you here again soon, I hope to see you in the community.
I appreciate it, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you guys. All right, have a good one. Bye. All right, everyone, that concludes this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed meeting the team. I hope you enjoyed learning about the feature, and maybe you'll try it out. If you do, please let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear from you. Just a reminder, next week, we're going to be back really soon because we want to talk about work automation, and we'd love to have your questions to ask on the episode. So head over to that Genesys Cloud community, look for my post, and let me know what kind of a question you have for our panel. I'll be happy to ask it and hopefully get you an answer. All right, that does it for this week. I'll see you in record time. Until then, have a good one, everybody. Bye.